Today I'll share with you the 10 things I should have done way earlier pertaining to real estate. Number one, I should have started saving, the habit of saving way earlier. As you know, if at some point in your life you want to invest, you'll have to put some money aside. And just learning to save some money is not something you're born with. You need a role model, somebody around you that you look at it and you're like, hey, this person puts money aside for a real estate project in the future. But if nobody tells you what will come in, will go out, and at the end of the month, you'll have nothing saved. So you got to learn way earlier how to save. So that's one of the things, specifically the younger crowd, like in the 20 to 29 age group, they're telling me, well, I haven't saved a penny, but I should have learned how to save when I was maybe 15 or 16. Number two, I should have started my financial education when I was a kid, when I was younger, because nowadays we don't learn personal finance when we're in elementary school or, high school. But it's something really important, because how do you learn how to budget? How to use your credit card? What's the difference between debit, credit? What's a passive investment? All those words, this language is something we're not born with. So we need someone that tells us, how to manage, just like when you have your paycheck. Just knowing that you have to put some money aside for your investment, for some savings, is something that's not easy for everyone. And if you don't learn how to use your credit card properly, well, you end up in the rat race, always like trying to pay your next credit card bill. So the financial education I'll get, the sooner the better. Number three, I should have bought my real estate property way sooner. I was speaking to one of my clients last week, 35 years old, and he was telling me, Gabe, I should have bought my property at the age of 25 or 26. I could have bought a property back then, but I was just living my life. And as you know, time is the biggest factor in any real estate or even stock market investment. The more time you have, the better your chance of having a good return on investment, because it's your ally. So if you start investing when you're 23, 24, 26, 27, down the line when you're 60, it's going to make a huge difference in the return you'll get, as opposed to maybe entering the market when you're 37. So the sooner, the better. The younger you can buy a property, go ahead and buy your first property and let just the time do the rest of the job. And by the way, if you have a project of buying or selling property, my team and I, we're there to help. Just shoot us an email, call us. We'll schedule a Zoom call or a face-to-face meeting, and we'll guide you from A to Z. We're there to help. Number four, I should have contributed to my RRSP way earlier. In fact, I should have started when I had my first paycheck. It's an incentive to save some taxes, but at the end of the line, with regards to real estate, you can wrap those RRSPs when it's time for you to buy a house, and you use your RRSPs as a down payment, and it's a government program in Canada that you can use. It's really useful. I did it myself. When I had my first paycheck, for the next couple of 5-6 years, I put money aside in my RRSPs. And when it's time for me to buy my first property, I use all those RRSPs as my down payment. It's a wrap program, really useful. Number five, I should have rented instead of buying. I'm a realtor, and I'm telling you, if you're just starting a relationship, start by renting, just to see if the relationship is going great after a year or two, instead of just jumping into buying. Because I can tell you, last year, 2023, I had 10 different couples that called me. I sold their properties, but they lost a lot of money because they bought maybe a year or two prior, and they sold their property because they were breaking up. And all of them jumped from living in separate places to buying a property. There was no transition period into an apartment they were renting. So, the bottom line is that they lost a lot of money. And losing money when you're just starting in life, whether you're in your 20s or early 30s, that's really painful. Because just imagine, you buy a property, you sell it 2 years later, the exact same price, but with all the transition fees, you lose money. And on top of that, it's hard to rebuild that money that you lost because you're just starting. So to reduce the chances, the risk, just start with maybe renting for a year or two. And then, if it goes well, maybe think of buying with the person you love. Number six, I should have talked to all my different neighbors that own investment properties. Because I'll give you an example. One of my friends, he's a fireman. And he was telling me, Gabe, in my area where I live, there's a lot of triplex, fourplex. And I know all the different owners. And one morning, I saw a sign. One of the owners had 2 properties. He put it on the market. He's like, hey, I should have bought those properties. I knew the guy. I should have told him that I was interested in buying. And I should have done that with all the different owners in my area, just like a mayor would talk to all the different people in the area. Just let them know what your intentions. I want to be a real estate investor someday. If one day you sell your property, let me know. Here's my email, here's my phone. And maybe just call them once every 6 months to see, just to touch base. That way you could secure some nice investment close to where you live, skipping all the process of going through the agent. You could just talk to each other and just find a price that's good for both parties. So that's one of the things I've heard the most pertaining to investors that wanted to buy close from home. They're like, oh, I was kind of lazy. I should have talked to all those people before. I knew them. I should have known. But that's a lesson you learn once. But then after, it's up to you to just make those contacts. Number 7, I should have bought more properties. I've been in the business for 15 years, so I've sold properties in the last 10 or 15 years to a lot of investors. And when I called them for some, just a regular chat with them, I asked them, are you happy with your investment we've purchased in the last couple of years, and 10 years or so? It's like, Gabe, when I look at the prices, I should have bought more. I should have bought 4, 5, 6, 7, because prices were cheap. Back then, we thought it was expensive. But look at the price increase throughout the years. I should have bought more. So that's one thing I heard a lot. I am happy I bought. I should have bought more. That way I would have this equity for me and my family. Unfortunately, I just bought one. Sometimes we're kind of greedy as investors, but it's just that when we realize that in real estate, it's such a safe investment. It's not that risky to say, you know what, I'm going to use the money I have to buy maybe another property, just a second property, and I'm going to eventually transfer those to my kids or my loved ones. Number 8, I should have stayed in my smaller home that was way more affordable, because as you know, we're in the rat race society when we want more, a newer car, a newer home. One of my clients was telling me, Gabe, I started with a smaller house. It was not so expensive. I was perfectly happy. But somehow I had some new needs. Oh, I'm gonna buy a larger home. 4 or 5 years later, a larger one. But throughout the transition, the payments have gone up. For the maintenance, taxes, the mortgage payments, the furniture, it costs a lot of money. And at the end of the road, he was telling me, I should have stayed in the smaller one to have that flexibility to use my money to do all kinds of fun stuff instead of just chasing the next one, the bigger home, the nicer furniture. So that's a personal finance thing that at the end of the road, you'll realize that it's not the size of the house that's important. You could be perfectly happy in a smaller home. It's specifically in some pricey neighborhood where homes are really expensive. Stick to the ones that are smaller and use the money maybe to do some other investments elsewhere. But for your personal property, sometimes a small house could be perfect for your budget. Number 9, I should have used the equity in my home to invest in. One of my clients, he calls me, he's like, hey Gabe, what's the value of my home? Like, that's about $850,000, no mortgage. And I asked him, like, are you aware that you could have used your equity to invest in the stock market or buy a 8-plex, 10-plex? It's like, no. Well, the money in your house, the return is 0. It's just sleeping there. You could have used half of the value just to invest and create that return on investment. And he's like, are you kidding me? I'm like, no. And every year I have people telling me I should have used the equity that was just sitting there and use it as a way to, get more return, buy real estate, invest on the stock market, use it for something that's going to grow, buy a small business, because otherwise return on investment is 0 as opposed to what it could have been. So that's what I heard a lot. When people have their house for like 10, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, and they realize the equity was just sitting there with 0 return, it's painful. Number 10, I should have sold my property way earlier. I have a client of mine, it's a couple. They had their houses for 35 years. At year 25, the kids left the house, but they sold at year 35, 10 years later. But when they sold their house at year 35, recently, like, Gabe, we should have sold, when the kids left, we should have sold the house, because in those 10 years, we had to, all the maintenance, inside, outside, the remodeling, cleaning the windows, we do everything by ourselves. The time it took, but not only that, we had no mortgage. We could have used the money, invest it, and then go rent a place. And with the money we would have made on our investment, we could have paid for all the different trips we've done. So if we could go back in time, we'd have sold the property. When the kids left, a year or 2 after, we should have sold the house way earlier and then maybe transition to a smaller condo, either renting or buy, and then use the extra money because I had no mortgage and just invest it somewhere else. Out of those 10, which one of those have you repeated to yourself? Should have done this or that way earlier with regards to real estate. If you have a project of buying or selling a property in Quebec, in the province of Quebec, just shoot me an email. call me. My team and I, we're there to guide you. We'll schedule a Zoom call, face-to-face meeting, and then we'll take care of you. We're there to help. Don't be shy. We're really there to help. We enjoy helping people in real estate. If you like these kinds of videos, stick around. I got more coming up. In the meantime, take good care of yourself.